Modern wellness culture looked at basic health advice like eat vegetables and said, no thanks. I'd rather drink charcoal sludge recommended by a guy named Moonwolf77. Somewhere along the line, humanity decided that surviving wasn't enough. We needed to optimize ourselves into complete insanity. So now people are rubbing garlic on their feet to cure headaches, sitting inside freezing barrels like discounted Batman villains, and willingly paying strangers to stab them with bee venom because apparently regular allergies weren't exciting enough. And the truly terrifying part? Half these ideas were considered cutting-edge medicine at the time. But trust me, the things you're about to hear make kale smoothies look like the last surviving shred of human dignity. 2. In the early 1900s, people became absolutely obsessed with radioactive health products because apparently glowing was considered a wellness goal. Companies sold radioactive toothpaste, radioactive chocolate, radioactive water crocks. Basically, if it could slowly poison you, somebody slapped the word health on it and charged extra. The crown jewel of this insanity was Radithor, a bottled drink containing actual radium. The ads promised energy, vitality, and restored manhood, which sounds suspiciously like every modern testosterone podcast hosted by a guy named Chad with a Viking beard. One wealthy businessman drank so much of the stuff, his jaw literally started disintegrating. Imagine dying because your wellness routine turned your skeleton into IKEA furniture. And the wildest part is people trusted it because the bottles glowed faintly, which somehow screamed science instead of comic book supervillain accident. Humanity really saw radioactive liquid and collectively said, finally, medicine with flavor. 3. For a while, Victorian society decided the healthiest thing a woman could possibly be was pale enough to resemble a haunted lampshade. Sunlight meant you were poor and worked outside, so wealthy women avoided it, like vampires with student loans. But avoiding the sun wasn't enough. Oh no. Some women literally consumed arsenic pills to improve their complexion. Actual poison, tiny little death mints marketed as beauty supplements. The logic was incredible. Sure, my organs may be quietly dissolving, but look how porcelain my skin is. And because the universe enjoys dark comedy, arsenic did temporarily make skin look lighter before causing things like vomiting, nerve damage, and eventual death. So technically, the beauty treatment worked right up until the horrifying collapse part. Imagine risking organ failure because society decided looking slightly translucent was hot. Modern influencers drink celery juice and call it self-care, but Victorian women were basically speedrunning chemistry-based suicide for the aesthetic. 4. In the 1920s, cigarette companies started advertising smoking as a healthy lifestyle choice, not metaphorically, literally healthy. Doctors appeared in ads recommending specific cigarette brands because apparently the medical community once looked at lung smoke and thought, ah yes, wellness fog. Some ads even claimed smoking helped digestion, weight loss, and throat irritation, which is incredible. That's like selling gasoline as a hydration beverage because it's technically liquid. Women especially got targeted with slogans basically translating to skip dessert, inhale cancer instead. And people bought it, millions of them. Hollywood stars smoked elegantly in black and white films while coughing their way toward future documentaries. Looking back, it's impossible not to admire the sheer confidence of cigarette marketing. They managed to convince humanity that setting dried leaves on fire and inhaling the smoke into your lungs was part of a balanced lifestyle. Somewhere, a medieval plague doctor probably looked at those ads and thought, finally, medicine has become stupid enough for me. 5. There was once a booming health trend where people intentionally swallowed tapeworms for weight loss because apparently dieting normally was too boring and lacked the thrill of hosting a parasite inside your intestines. The sales pitch was basically, why exercise when a worm can eat your lunch for you? which honestly sounds least like healthcare and more like a rejected Batman villain origin story. These tapeworm diet pills became wildly popular among people desperate to stay thin, despite the tiny downside that the parasite could also cause seizures, organ damage, and horrifying digestive problems. But vanity is undefeated. Humanity heard live worm inside your body and still responded with, okay, but will it help me fit into summer clothes? Imagine explaining this to an alien civilization. Yes, we voluntarily infected ourselves with intestinal parasites because beach season was approaching. At some point, human wellness culture stopped being medicine and became a saw trap with branding. 6. In the Middle Ages, people genuinely believed bathing too often could make you sick because water supposedly opened the pores and let disease enter the body. So instead of cleaning themselves, many folks just covered the smell with perfume and hoped nobody stood downwind too aggressively. European nobles walked around in powdered wigs, smelling like roses, sprayed onto raccoons living in a dumpster fire. And because this logic wasn't stupid enough already, doctors also blamed illness on bad air, meaning people thought the real danger wasn't filth, it was vibes. Imagine surviving the Black Death while refusing to wash because hygiene sounded medically suspicious. Modern wellness influencers tell you to avoid seed oils. Medieval Europe said, avoid soap, that's where death sneaks in. Honestly, if someone from the 1400s walked into a modern gym locker room, they'd probably faint from terror watching people voluntarily shower after sweating. 7. In the 1950s, some health experts became obsessed with lobotomies as a miracle cure for mental illness, anxiety, depression, and apparently women having opinions. The procedure involved shoving an ice pick like tool through the eye socket and scrambling parts of the brain like a hungover guy making breakfast at 2 p.m. And somehow, this counted as cutting edge medicine. Doctors handed these things out with the confidence of an Apple employee recommending a phone upgrade. Feeling sad? Ice pick. Too emotional? Ice pick. Your wife reads books and asks difficult questions. Congratulations, medical science has a horrifying solution. One doctor became so famous for performing lobotomies that he literally toured the country in a van performing brain surgery like some kind of deranged food truck for psychological trauma. Sure, many patients became calmer afterward, mostly because their personalities had been bulldozed into static wallpaper. Nothing says mental wellness quite like permanently unplugging the human soul. 8. For centuries, people believed mercury was fantastic for your health, which really explains a lot about human history. Doctors used it to treat infections, digestive problems, skin conditions, and syphilis, because apparently, when your patient already has one terrible disease, why not introduce liquid metal poisoning for variety? Mercury ointments, mercury pills, mercury drinks. Humanity treated one of Earth's most toxic substances like it was a multivitamin. And yes, it absolutely destroyed people's nervous systems. Patients developed trembling hands, hallucinations, memory loss, and emotional instability, which doctors often interpreted as signs the treatment was working. Imagine poisoning someone so badly they forget their own name, and your medical conclusion is excellent progress. The phrase mad as a hatter literally came from hat makers slowly losing their minds from mercury exposure, but somehow society still kept putting this stuff into medicine. Human beings really looked at shiny brain poison and said, therapeutic. 9. In the Victorian era, certain doctors recommended cocaine for toothaches, fatigue, depression, and general low energy because apparently the official medical strategy was just, what if we made the patient faster? Cocaine appeared in medicines, tonics, syrups, and even children's remedies. Imagine being a tired mom in 1890, asking the pharmacist for something to calm your child down and leaving with what basically amounted to tiny legal rocket fuel. Even Sigmund Freud became obsessed with cocaine and promoted it like a guy who discovered espresso for the first time. The logic was flawless in the dumbest possible way. Wow, after taking this mysterious white powder, I suddenly feel amazing and unstoppable. Yeah, for about 14 minutes before your nervous system starts filing complaints with management. It's incredible how often old medicine accidentally reinvented the behavior of nightclub bathrooms. Humanity really spent centuries turning severe drug problems into wellness trends with decorative labels. 10. There was a period when people believed eating mummies could improve health. Real mummies, crushed up human remains imported from Egyptian tombs and sold as medicine across Europe. I wish I were joking, but apparently ancient corpses were once considered the original protein supplement. Doctors prescribed mummy powder for headaches, stomach problems, bleeding, and internal injuries because medieval medicine operated with the same logic as a cursed pirate movie. Rich people literally consumed dead Egyptians, thinking the mystical preservation properties would somehow transfer into their own bodies. Imagine surviving thousands of years inside a pyramid only to end up blended into a Renaissance smoothie for some aristocrat with indigestion. And naturally, demand became so high that fake mummy businesses appeared, because of course they did. Nothing says advanced civilization like grave robbing on an industrial scale for healthcare purposes. We always imagine ancient people being horrified by modern society, but honestly, they'd probably just ask why we stopped eating the dead. 11. In the 1800s, people became convinced that celery was basically a magical superfood capable of curing exhaustion, nerves, and probably bad marriages if marketed aggressively enough. Doctors prescribed celery tonics like they'd discovered the infinity stone of vegetables. There were celery-flavored soft drinks, celery extracts, celery health elixirs. Humanity briefly transformed a crunchy water stick into a pharmaceutical celebrity. Some products even contained actual drugs mixed into the celery, because apparently nobody trusted celery to carry the team on its own. The funniest part is that rich Victorians treated celery as a luxury item and displayed it in special crystal vases at dinner parties. Imagine inviting guests over just to flex on them with aggressively expensive salad ingredients. Today, people spend $14 on green detox juice while pretending it tastes good for spiritual reasons. So, honestly, not much has changed. We're still one Instagram caption away from worshiping vegetables like medieval relics. 12. At one point, health gurus started promoting urine therapy, the idea that drinking your own urine could heal the body because apparently dehydration alone wasn't humiliating enough. Advocates claimed it boosted immunity, cured infections, improved skin, and increased energy, which is incredible confidence for a liquid your body specifically worked hard to remove. The human kidneys are basically screaming, "Please throw this away," while wellness influencers reply, "Counterpoint, what if I drank it warm in a mason jar?" Ancient cultures practiced it, modern alternative medicine revived it, and somehow every generation rediscovers this idea like cursed downloadable content for humanity. Imagine explaining to your ancestors that after centuries of scientific advancement, some people voluntarily wake up and drink pee because a guy on YouTube said it aligns their frequencies. At that point, evolution just clocks out early and heads to the airport. 13. In the 1920s, sunlight became such a massive health obsession that people intentionally baked themselves for vitality with the dedication of rotisserie chickens at Costco. Pale skin suddenly went out of fashion, tanning became glamorous, and doctors encouraged people to soak up ultraviolet rays for strength and energy, which, to be fair, sunlight is healthy in moderation, but humans don't understand moderation. We turn everything into a competitive sport. So people started lying under blazing heat for hours, covered in reflective oil, like they were preparing for launch at Cape Canaveral. Tanning salons later arrived and basically said, "What if we brought the surface of the sun indoors?" Skin cancer rates skyrocketed, but at least everybody looked temporarily bronze while aging like forgotten leather furniture. Humanity really took the phrase healthy glow and transformed it into a long-term dermatological revenge plot. 14. For a while, doctors prescribed heroin as medicine. Actual heroin. In fact, the drug was originally marketed by Bayer, yes, the aspirin company, as a safer alternative to morphine and even as a cough suppressant for children, which is one of the most aggressively terrible product ideas in pharmaceutical history. Little Timmy has a cough. Fantastic news. We've got industrial grade opiates for that. Early advertisements described heroin as non-addictive, which is roughly the medical equivalent of calling a shark emotionally supportive. People took it for asthma, bronchitis, pain relief, and respiratory issues before the world collectively realized they had accidentally invented a turbocharged addiction machine. It's honestly impressive how often humanity mistakes temporarily feeling incredible for long-term health benefit. By that logic, birthday cake and tequila are also advanced medicine. 15. In the late 1800s, some wealthy health fanatics became obsessed with electric belts that supposedly cured fatigue, impotence, digestive issues, and basically every problem short of being chased by wolves. These belts delivered tiny electric shocks to the body because society had just discovered electricity and immediately turned into a raccoon playing with exposed wires. Advertisements promised renewed masculine vigor and limitless energy, which sounds suspiciously like every sketchy internet ad currently sitting beside a podcast video. Men wore these things under their clothes, hoping to become healthier, while quietly electrocuting their own stomachs like malfunctioning cyborgs. Some belts didn't even produce electricity at all. They were basically placebo fanny packs for desperate people terrified of aging. But honestly, you almost have to admire the optimism. Humanity saw lightning kill people and thought, interesting, but what if smaller lightning fixed my digestion? 16. In the early 1900s, yogurt became such a massive health craze that people treated it less like food and more like enchanted medieval potion sludge. One doctor convinced Europe that Bulgarian peasants lived forever because they ate yogurt every day. And suddenly, rich people were spooning fermented milk into themselves with the religious devotion of cult members awaiting ascension. Fancy yogurt cafes opened. Celebrities endorsed it. People spoke about gut bacteria like they were tiny spiritual advisors living inside the intestines. And look, yogurt is fine, but humanity immediately overcorrected and acted like a dairy product had personally conquered death. It's always amazing watching society discover one mildly healthy thing and react like a caveman discovering fire. We still do it today. Add the word probiotic to anything, and modern consumers behave like raccoons, finding glowing treasure in a nuclear wasteland. 17. At one point, people genuinely believed sleeping with raw onions in the room could absorb illness from the air. During outbreaks of disease, families would place onions around the house like tiny vegetable bodyguards standing watch against death itself. Some even carried onions in their pockets for protection, which means entire cities probably smelled like soup ingredients during flu season. The logic was incredible. Ah, yes, microscopic deadly pathogens. Surely your greatest weakness is produce. And because humans never know when to stop, if the onion later turned dark or mushy, people took it as proof the vegetable had absorbed the sickness. No, Gerald, it absorbed time. That's what vegetables do. Imagine explaining modern germ theory to somebody proudly sleeping beside a sacrificial onion like it's a medieval air purifier. Honestly, the onion deserved better. It spent centuries getting blamed for things it didn't do while also being forced into horrifying wellness theater. 18. In the 1800s, doctors started prescribing vibrating chairs for health treatments because apparently medicine briefly merged with the back corner of a shopping mall massage store. These machines violently shook patients to improve circulation, digestion, mood, and nervous conditions. Rich people sat in mechanical trembling thrones, getting rattled around like loose coins inside a dryer, while doctors nodded seriously nearby, pretending this was advanced science. Some machines shook the entire body. Others targeted specific areas with deeply unsettling enthusiasm. The best part is how confidently these treatments were marketed. Fatigue. Shake him. constipation, shake harder, anxiety, more vibration. Humanity really spent decades treating the body like an old television set that needed smacking to work properly. And honestly, part of me respects the commitment. Before modern medicine fully matured, society basically wandered through history, aggressively electrocuting, shaking, bleeding, and poisoning itself while calling the process wellness. 19. For centuries, wealthy Europeans visited spas specifically to drink sulfur-rich mineral water that smelled exactly like rotten eggs because apparently suffering through horrifying taste experiences has always been confused with discipline. These spa towns became wildly fashionable. Aristocrats traveled enormous distances just to sip warm fart water from decorative cups while discussing purifying the body. And yes, many people got violently sick from drinking too much of it, but that only convinced them the water was cleansing toxins. Humanity loves interpreting distress as progress. If your treatment causes vomiting, dizziness, or explosive diarrhea, somebody somewhere immediately decides it's working. Modern detox culture still runs on the exact same logic. We've just upgraded from sulfur puddles to influencers selling powdered algae named things like Moon Cleanse Supreme. Deep down, human beings remain obsessed with the idea that true health must feel vaguely like punishment. 20. In the Victorian era, some doctors recommended sleeping inside giant metal cages suspended over the bed to improve circulation and posture. Imagine climbing into what looked like a bird enclosure every night because a man with sideburns and alarming confidence told you it would optimize your health. These contraptions were marketed as scientific breakthroughs, though they mostly resembled something Batman villains would use to interrogate accountants. Some people also strapped themselves into bizarre posture devices while sleeping to correct bodily weakness, which sounds suspiciously like turning bedtime into low-budget medieval torture. And honestly, this obsession never really disappeared. Modern society still buys $1,200 ergonomic sleep pods designed by tech bros who speak exclusively in podcasts and liver supplements. Humanity simply refuses to accept that sleeping is already free and relatively effective without needing industrial scaffolding involved. 21. In the 1700s, tobacco smoke enemas became an actual medical treatment because apparently there was no terrible idea humanity wouldn't eventually shove into somebody's lower intestine. Doctors believed blowing tobacco smoke into the rectum could revive drowning victims or cure stomach ailments. Hospitals literally kept special smoke enema kits ready for emergencies like some horrifying steampunk party trick. Imagine nearly dying in a river only to wake up surrounded by serious men arguing about how much cigar smoke your colon requires. And this wasn't fringe nonsense either. Respected medical professionals endorsed it. Somewhere in history, a doctor confidently announced, "Gentlemen, the patient needs more smoke in his butt immediately." And society just rolled with it. Human civilization survived entirely through luck. There's honestly no other explanation at this point. 22. For a while, people became obsessed with magnetic healing bracelets because humanity apparently sees magnets the same way toddlers see glitter, mysterious and probably magical. These bracelets promise to cure pain, improve circulation, increase energy, and basically transform your body into a fully optimized superhero operating system. The logic was always beautifully vague. Magnets restore your natural energy fields, which sounds scientific until you realize refrigerator magnets technically also qualify. Athletes wore them. Celebrities promoted them. Entire industries formed around slapping decorative metal onto wrists and pretending physics had become holistic medicine. And every single testimonial sounded identical. "I don't know if it works, but I feel different." Yeah. That's called expectation and desperation having a baby. Humans will attach mystical powers to literally anything if the packaging includes the words natural and energy balance. 23. In the late 19th century, some health reformers became convinced chewing food excessively was the secret to perfect health. One famous nutrition fanatic instructed followers to chew every bite at least 100 times before swallowing. 100. Imagine sitting beside somebody taking 14 minutes to consume a grape while staring into the middle distance like a malfunctioning cow contemplating taxes. Entire social circles adopted this practice with terrifying sincerity. Dinner parties probably sounded like washing machines full of oatmeal. The theory claimed proper chewing could cure obesity, digestive issues, fatigue, and overeating, which honestly just sounds like starvation with extra steps because nobody has the emotional stamina to chew mashed potatoes 700 times per meal. Humanity constantly rediscovers the same wellness formula. Take a mildly reasonable idea, inflate it into religious extremism, then act shocked when everyone becomes unbearable. 24. In ancient Rome, wealthy citizens sometimes rubbed gladiator sweat onto their skin for health and beauty because apparently moisturizer alone lacked enough emotional trauma. Vendors actually scraped sweat and oils off fighters after matches and sold the mixture as skincare products. Just imagine the marketing meeting behind this. Ladies, are you tired of dry skin? What if I told you this cream contains concentrated perspiration from a man who was stabbed near a tiger earlier today? Somehow, people believed the strength and vitality of gladiators transferred through sweat like biological Wi Fi. Honestly, ancient Rome was basically one giant luxury influencer culture built entirely around lead poisoning and public violence. They had skincare routines that sounded like dares from drunk uncles at a barbecue. 25. In the 1920s, reducing soaps became a health trend because apparently people looked at regular soap and thought, nice, but can it also lie to me? Companies sold special soaps, claiming users could literally wash fat away while bathing. That's right. Humanity briefly believed obesity could be defeated through aggressive lathering. The ads featured glamorous women smiling beside bars of soap, like they'd unlocked forbidden knowledge from an ancient temple of nonsense. And the saddest part is people desperately wanted it to be true because dieting is difficult and humans would rather trust enchanted foam than basic biology. Honestly, modern weight loss marketing hasn't evolved much. We've simply upgraded from magic soap to gummies, promoted by influencers who somehow always have six-pack abs despite surviving entirely on sponsored milkshakes. 26. In the Middle Ages, doctors recommended sleeping with animal skins, herbs, or even dead pigeons strapped to the body to absorb disease. Dead pigeons, because when confronting serious illness, humanity's first instinct has apparently always been, what if we made this dramatically stranger? Some remedies required slicing the pigeon open first so the healing essence could work more efficiently, which I'm sure was fantastic news for everyone involved except the pigeon. Imagine running a fever while somebody gently places warm bird carcasses onto your chest and assures you this is premium healthcare. Honestly, medieval medicine often feels less like science and more like a wizard losing a bet. 27. In the 1970s, people became obsessed with coffee enemas as a detox treatment because drinking coffee normally apparently lacks sufficient humiliation. Wellness gurus claimed injecting caffeine into the body through the least logical route imaginable would cleanse toxins and boost energy, which sounds less like medicine and more like a punishment handed down by angry Italian ghosts. Entire detox clinics formed around this concept, charging enormous amounts of money to turn basic beverages into deeply uncomfortable life choices. And somehow, the human brain always falls for this pattern. The more unpleasant the treatment feels, the more powerful people assume it must be. If somebody invented a wellness retreat where participants got slapped with wet kale for 6 hours, there'd be a waiting list by Thursday. 28. In the early days of aviation, some doctors suggested airplane flights could improve health because high-altitude air supposedly strengthened the body, which is incredible considering early airplanes looked less safe than folding lawn chairs strapped to lawnmower engines. Wealthy people booked flights for air therapy, happily rattling through turbulence in machines held together by optimism and screws from a hardware store. Pilots were basically airborne gamblers wearing scarves, and yet passengers sat there thinking, ah, yes, this violent shaking several thousand feet above the earth feels deeply medicinal. Humanity always confuses novelty with wisdom. If cavemen had invented roller coasters, somebody would have prescribed them for migraines by sunset. 29. For decades, people believed sleeping with radioactive heating pads and radium-lined blankets improved circulation and vitality because apparently glowing in the dark remained suspiciously attractive to wellness culture. Manufacturers sold radioactive household products with the confidence of cartoon supervillains opening a spa resort. Consumers slept beside literal radiation because advertisements promised rejuvenation and natural energy, which is technically true if your definition of energy includes unstable atomic decay slowly mutating your cells. It's honestly fascinating how often humanity mistakes dangerously powerful for healthy. We saw radioactive material melt through living tissue and collectively concluded, interesting, perhaps this could help with back pain. 30. In the Victorian era, people used arsenic wafers to purify the blood and improve complexion, but some enthusiasts took things even further by slowly building arsenic tolerance intentionally. They believed tiny doses made the body stronger and healthier over time, essentially treating poison exposure like a fitness routine. Imagine waking up every morning thinking, time for my microdose of death. The body would gradually adapt, which sounds impressive until you remember the long-term effects included organ damage and eventual catastrophic collapse. But vanity always wins. Humans will risk horrifying consequences if society promises clearer skin and a slightly more fashionable jawline. Entire civilizations have basically operated on the philosophy of future me can deal with it. 31. And finally, my personal favorite piece of wellness insanity, trepanation, the ancient practice of drilling holes into the human skull to improve mental health, release pressure, or expand consciousness. And somehow this idea survived into modern times, because of course it did. Some modern believers genuinely argued that putting holes in your head increases blood flow and spiritual awareness, which sounds less like medicine and more like something whispered by a wizard living behind a gas station. Imagine surviving millions of years of evolution, building cities, inventing satellites, decoding DNA, and then voluntarily handing a stranger a drill because you think your brain needs more breathing room. That's humanity in one image right there. We invented modern civilization and still occasionally behave like raccoons trying to repair a television with fireworks. So after all that, I think we can officially conclude that humanity will try absolutely anything for better health, except maybe sleeping normally and drinking water. We poisoned ourselves, electrified ourselves, smoked ourselves, drilled holes into our heads, and somehow kept calling it wellness with a straight face. Honestly, evolution deserves an apology. Let me know in the comments which one was the dumbest, or tell me the most ridiculous health trend you've ever seen, because I guarantee this rabbit hole somehow gets even worse. And if you enjoyed this parade of medically certified nonsense, hit like, subscribe, and stick around for the next episode of Humanity Aggressively Misunderstanding Reality.